The Death of the Hired Man by Robert Frost uses an extended dialogue between Mary and Warren to explore questions of duty and responsibility. The opening stanza functions as an introduction to the situation, presenting the attitudes of the two main characters as well as broking the major conflict. We are told that Silas is back, though we don't know yet who Silas is, and we gather that Warren will be upset with this information, though Mary is more patient. Warren presents his interpretation of the past events, referring in a flashback to his experience with Silas. He distinguishes between being kind to Silas and hiring him to work on the farm. Apparently, Silas has left and returned repeatedly until last haying season when Warren ordered him not to return if he was going to leave. One indication that this act has occurred repeatedly is Warren's use of present tense verbs. If this had happened only once, Warren would have said that Silas came back rather than that he comes back. Haying season would be the time when all the farmers in the area would need extra help. Some of them would be willing to pay wages rather than simply room and board or a portion of the crop. But Warren is apparently not financially able to do so. Warren indicates that Silas does not use the cash to better himself but perhaps wastes it. The differences between the attitudes of Warren and Mary become clear. Warren is frustrated because of his past experience, while Mary is compassionate because she has observed Silas's current condition. She describes him with words that could describe an animal rather than a human being: huddled, miserable, frightening. And he would place himself against the barn door rather than the door to the house. Although Mary attempted to care for him physically, Silas seemed to be too exhausted to receive her care. The fact that he was unable to wake up to drink tea or smoke foreshadows the end of the poem, when he will be permanently unable to wake up. Warren's tone turns sarcastic. He speculates that Silas has come to ditch the meadow as he had promised to do in the past. But Warren knows Silas is incapable of the task. Even after Mary provides more detail about her conversation with Silas, Warren remains unsympathetic. Mary, though, recognizes that Silas makes promises he can't keep to protect his dignity. He promises to work because he doesn't want to beg. Yet Mary also recognizes how ill Silas is through his conversation. He is nearly incoherent. Frost continues to use colloquial idioms rather than formal vocabulary to emphasize the oral nature of the poem. Silas ran on Harold Wilson and describes him as a likely lad. Silas's past troubles him like a dream. His memory is like a nightmare. This simile is particularly appropriate because of Silas's inability to stay awake during his conversation with Mary, and because by the end of the poem he will drift from sleep to death. The younger boy is represented by Latin and a violin, much more cultural and formal types of knowledge than Silas's folk knowledge, how to find water with a hazel prong. The conflict between Silas and Harold Wilson also relates to Silas's dignity and feelings of self-worth. His solution is to teach Harold how to build a load of hay, knowledge Harold probably won't use, but knowledge that gives value to Silas's life. The argument continues between Warren and Mary. Warren relies on a simile to explain Silas's inept methods. He forks hay in bunches like dig birds' nets. This type of simile would be natural to Warren, who lives in the country and would have observed such birds' nests. Mary seems to share Silas's attitude that formal education is somewhat useless, for she refers to Harold as a fool of books. She believes that if Silas can transmit his knowledge to someone else, he will not believe he has lived in vain. The poem shifts to a lyrical tone. For the first time, attention shifts away from the characters to the setting. The description becomes somewhat peaceful as the moon is personified, that is, given the characteristics of a living being. Mary, not Warren, receive the quiet light and seems to be more aware of the beauty of their surroundings. She notices that the stems of morning glories resemble the strings of a harp, a simile that is extended when Mary touches them as if she played unheard. Frost is using these details in order to emphasize Mary's character. As a gentle person, she interprets her surroundings with gentleness. The conversation reveals the crux of Mary's disagreement with Warren. They debate the meaning of home, with Warren providing a cynical and callous definition. When you have to go there, they have to take you in. His attitude is exceptionally practical, while Mary's is more emotional. Warren's action reinforces the difference between him and Mary. While Mary had earlier treated the plants gently, Warren breaks a stick and tosses it aside. Their conversation here provides some additional background material regarding Silas. He has a brother who is quite successful by conventional standards, but with whom Silas does not get along. Warren and Mary know these people in a small towns tend to know about each other's lives, not because Silas has himself revealed anything. Warren understands relationships as if they are contracts. Silas should go to his brother because he has a better claim on a blood relative. Mary agrees that his brother has an obligation, but she argues that Silas's dignity has greater value. Mary continues to urge Warren to treat Silas with sympathy. She speculates that he is too weak to recover enough to do any work, though she does not want to make Silas feel useless. She concludes with a whimsical statement that she'll watch a cloud sail past or hit the moon. These lines recall the earlier reference to the moon when Mary noticed and captured the light in her apron. In the final section, the abrupt nature of Silas's death is conveyed by the structure of the lines. The cloud hit the moon and the tone shifts briefly from a whimsy to aggression. At this point, the natural elements of the moon and cloud become characters with a status equal to Mary's. When Warren returns, his attitude is somewhat more compassionate. He responds gently to Mary, even if he could not have to Silas. Then he needs only one word, dead, to convey the event. Although he seems very matter of fact, he does not add any of the sarcastic comments that characterized his speech earlier. One interpretation of this direct statement, dead was all he answered, is that at the end of human life, no interpretation is necessary or possible. Because of this abrupt ending, the poem acquires a much darker significance. Warren is given the last word, and Silas's life seems to have been without meaning.